My name is Andrew Brown. I work at Bodie on Mass Ave.
How long have you been in the alcohol bartending restaurant industry?
My introduction to the service industry was when I was about 14, so that's about 18 years now. I've been doing the things.
How long have you been sober?
Actually, today marks 200 days. My current sobriety date is September 8th, 2022.
How long have you been trying to be sober?
My path kind of started on a sober curiosity about maybe I'd say a couple years ago. I was taking like some 30-day breaks here and there, and at the end of it, kind of always, thinking about a celebratory cocktail or something like that at the end. And after I extended it and realizing how much more productive and more in touch with myself, I decided that I needed to extend it. Relapse is a part of my journey. I did have 7 months of sobriety to the day, actually, and went back out and started drinking again. And then after being kind of living in that for a few months, I attended a treatment center and spent 60 days in there and came out way better on the other side.
Congratulations on
Thank you.
2 days.
Thank you.
Do you see yourself staying in the industry that you're working in?
It's kind of an all over the place thing for me a little bit. Like at some points in this sobriety, I have felt like no way, especially like in treatment, I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. But, thinking back to like that 7 month sobriety stint, I was bartending the entire time. Like no real temptation was being met by me being behind that bar. Once I had, the willpower and the surrender to living a way that I want to for myself, that kind of helps me ground in that decision. So I guess, I do see myself staying in this industry, but it kind of looks a little different. I think it's almost like a changing of the hat compared to changing of the guard, kind of not been behind the bar as much these days, but creating representation and throwing non-alcoholic events and creating, still being in the service industry in a different way. Providing that service just looks a little different for me now.
Yeah, you started an organization. Could you tell me
Yeah.
the name of the organization and what it does and how, and have you consciously decided to pivot out of the industry? It sounds like you have. So can you talk about the name of the organization and what it does for you in the industry?
Sure. So the name of our company is Parched Pavement. It's made up of 4 service industry professionals here in Indianapolis. One of our members did recently move, but still very, very much involved. We started as kind of coming together to create representation and inclusivity for people that are not drinking. That started with an idea of a mocktail competition brought from Lex, and then we kind of started on making a zero-proof roadmap for the city of Indianapolis, which is ever growing, and just laying out where you can get some drinks that are non-alcoholic, which surprisingly is quite a bit here in Indy. It seems to be we're very like on par with something that seems trending, which can be trending for some or lifestyle for me, and no disrespect either way. But so we threw a mental health mixer, and that was our first event, which is coming up on a year ago. We sold like 150 tickets. Lots of people definitely, proving that there is a need for this and just creating that safe space. And since we've thrown like body positivity balls, we've thrown mocktail competitions, very involved with anybody local, queer, indigenous people of color to the front. That's who we want to work with always. But yeah, just Parched Pavement has been such a beautiful way of like keeping the service industry in my heart still kind of fluttering, because I'm getting to work with so many friends that are in this industry, different venues and restaurants and people that want to be involved, and creating that space. Just maybe it's a floating space that travels.
Are you intentionally doing what you're doing as an act of service as a way to grow spiritually?
I mean, sure, if you really want to get down to the bones of it, I would say yes. That is, me sharing I'm recovering out loud so people do not have to suffer alone, and I think that being a part and face of our company is helping to do that. It's helped people reach out for help. It's helped people, even just maybe stay sober for 3 hours, and maybe that's just at our event, and they still imbibe, and that's their journey, and I respect that as well. Being in this restaurant industry and being a sober person, like I'm maybe more comfortable in being in a bar setting than the average person not drinking. So I wanted to utilize that power and kind of create that for people to have that same kind of warm energy, that same like meeting of random people, and however that goes. Maybe you're going home with them at the end of the night, and that's all thanks to kombucha, and and that's on cleansing. But like it is a spiritual aspect, because you're helping to cultivate joy and bringing that to others' lives. Like at one of our events, I had a woman come up to me in tears, and she was a little older, and she's like, I haven't made a friend in so long, and it's because I feel like I can't go anywhere because I don't drink, and it makes me uncomfortable when it's around. And so that is spiritual to me, creating community. And like I said, our brand is inclusivity, and so just creating representation, it can save lives.
I feel like you're saving my life right now.
That's sweet.
Yeah, true.
I mean, that's what it's all about, talking to each other, and hearing, when somebody can not feel alone just by hearing someone else's share or conversation, that amount of feeling seen is not anything exterior. That's all interior. That's your soul. That's the shit I've been through that you can relate to. And there's going to be a bond created there that I have made with so many walks of life that I never maybe would have even had introduced to me,
I want to ask you a question that tends to be hard for people, and it's definitely hard for myself.
Let's get it.
Yeah, if it's hard, that's probably what you should be doing, right? So my journey was I hit rock bottom, and then I kept using, and then it's almost like I started to get better, and then I was like, well, substances are impeding me getting better.
Mm.
And I think a lot about, and I want you to think about maybe whatever your rock bottom or low was. And you don't need to share that,
Mm-hmm.
but is there anything, and if there is, what would you say to that version of yourself if you could like go back in time and stand there?
Wow.
What would you say to help?
Beautiful. I mean, I definitely am familiar with rock bottom. We used to have a phrase that was like, I'm going to go hit rock bottom. Does anyone need anything? And luckily the entire dive bar shouts out me too. But, I think that it really took a lot of introspection, and I want to say convincing, because I was at such a low point of negative self-talk that I did not think that I deserved any peace inside of me, and it got met constantly by, very, very dark energy that was consuming me, and that's how I knew it. For me, it was an addiction, because I physically couldn't stop. And I was looking myself in the eyes at the time and not meeting myself with any grace. So something that's really cool, and that you asking this question, my therapist I've been working with for a couple years now, and they are amazing. Very, very grateful for them. Shout out Irvington Counseling Collective. And when I got out of treatment, it had been like a month or so, and I was working with this therapist the entire time I've been on this sober, curious journey. Well, I was going through some stuff and talking about it with them, and I was like, is there any notes you have on when I was at this point in my sobriety last time? And we actually had done a practice where they asked me to, if somebody was at, I think I was at like 3 months in their journey with sobriety, what would I say to them? And they got to read a letter from my past self to my current self, because I was that person that I was giving the advice to, So I think with that, it's give yourself grace. It's okay to notice your shit and be in shit, but you don't have to stay there. you don't have to feel this way ever again if you don't want to. It's going to be hard, but others are going to be there to help you. And it's okay to let them in. And owning it also, and I think that that's like utilizing my tools, right? And that therapy, I attend multiple different types of recovery programs and meetings and stuff, and I talk about it. I journal. I have great friends that, both in and out of sobriety that and that I can confide in, and they've saved my life multiple times, and I don't really even use that dramatically because I've been in the trenches, This turtleneck looked a lot different 7 months ago. I was just still being choked, and that was by my addiction.
I didn't think this would be hard, but it is. But we're doing it together.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing this with me.
Absolutely. Brene Brown says, like, with that the word vulnerability and courage is the same thing, and it's like there is no being courageous without being vulnerable. So here I sit, able to be vulnerable because it could help somebody, and it's helping me as well because it's a great reminder that I need and start my day with every day. In life, there is suffering, and there is also impermanence, and that helps me get by a lot, knowing that this too shall pass.
What's been the most challenging part of staying sober or getting sober while working in a bar?
Some days all of it, and some days none of it. And it's the difficult times are beyond the binary, and I will never have that to drink excitement again, but also meeting myself with the reminder that by letting go of that, so many other aspects of my life I get to experience and have joy. I mean, it's no like surprise to anyone that this industry is definitely fueled by substance, and that varies everywhere. I'm very lucky, like in my space that I work at Bodhi, we are very conscious, mental health is definitely discussed here. There's multiple people on staff that take lots of breaks from alcohol, and so the space being safe, I would say, I know you asked difficult, but this is kind of like the spin, and that helps affirm me in my journey is I have support in my work family, and that is life-saving as well. And the difficulties, I guess, the shift drinks obviously is probably the most triggering time during close or so, but I just, get to kind of play with that idea. I get to reclaim my moment that once was, a glass of red wine on a patio on a fall day. Now I get to reclaim that with a hot cup of chai tea, and I don't have any of the mental drag that comes with it afterward, and to me, that's living in myself. That's living in my moment. That's being present and placing myself there. Whereas I felt the alcohol was doing the opposite. It was taking me out of the present. It was, diminishing any parts of my exact reality because it was altering my mind. And also just going out with people after work, there's sometimes I feel like that FOMO of missing out, on just the connections that happen late night and stuff like that. But that was so much, and it's such a shift from this last stint of sobriety to now currently, and I think that what shifted is my glorification of it, and I have to not glorify that as much personally, because the night's out fun and all this, but I have stuff that goes with it afterward, and I do still go out, and we're lucky in this city and to have a lot of spaces that have, enjoyable things for me to go drink and still have that kind of relieving moment. But for me, sometimes that is met with a meditation at the end of the night to really get the relief, I think sometimes it's easy for staff to get that kind of ooh, the shift is done when they get their first drink, right after close. But mine doesn't come until I clock out and I walk out the door. And that's a struggle sometimes because, I'm human. I get jealous. I don't get to have that feeling right then and stuff, but just takes a lot of grounding. None of this shit is easy. It's all hard work, but the more that you show up for yourself, the more you benefit. And I've had to check myself with that sometimes too, especially in early sobriety, because you kind of like start noticing, and then I'm like, wow, all I'm doing is just hyperfixating on other humans and their journey with whatever that is, and it is all just to strip you from yourself, from stripping you, and it's ego as well and stuff. Our brains are wired to kind of do that, because I think humans, in my experience, it was not always taught to like talk about your shit from an early age, especially, and I am a queer human being growing up in a Catholic school. Like, that was suppression from the jump. That's what I was taught. Don't be yourself to keep yourself safe.
You talked about going out. You still go out. Did you avoid going out with coworkers at first?
First couple months are definitely usually like a no go for me, or were. And then it turned in time to being like, I want this kind of feeling. And currently, like, I just don't find myself wanting that. It's like my time seems a little more of value right now. And it's not that I don't value those experiences and times being out with people. It's just, I know that usually it's like met with, I need rest. I have this on the agenda the rest of the day. It's just so night and day with sobriety and active addiction for me, because it's like anything and everything is out the window. One drink in and I'm on my way to steal the Declaration of Independence. But without any drinks, I'm on my way to find my own independence, and that's more worth it for me.
So you're single.
Very.
When I was single working in bars, there's a lot of hooking up going on, and a lot of like flirtation and stuff. What is dating and hooking up look like in a sober world for you compared to how it used to be?
I am definitely like a sex positive human being. Like, there's absolutely nothing in embracing that part of myself, especially like we just said, it was kind of something that was suppressed and such too. So it's interesting because, I just like tend to care so much more now. It's way more on a connection level based than it is just like instant gratifications or 20-minute instant gratifications. I don't know your life, but it just, I feel, it's difficult. It's fucking hard too, like it's awkward as shit, there, and that's just on the meeting up part. The dates, it's like, honestly, I feel the restaurant industry has prepped me in a better way for dating scenarios, sober or not, because it's like, essentially I'm just table touching, and I'm also judging you based off your first drink order. No. But,
Is part of it, and this is what I was thinking about, at least from my perspective,
mm-hmm.
There would be an issue with consent. Like, if I'm out at 3 a.m., that's normally when I would decide, or whoever I was with, we would decide to go and hook up. But that definitely changes. So can you talk about like maybe the consent piece?
Sure.
Because you probably don't have, I would imagine not all of your partners are sober. So like, what does the consent piece look like?
Totally. Consent is key, period, at the forefront, no matter what, for me. And that is definitely something that I check in with, like people that maybe do live a lifestyle where they are drinking. Like, there comes a point where it's like, I'm not really going to be feeling that same level of attraction and connection, but that's because we are no longer riding the same frequencies, and there is like that level of uncomfortability for me. And personally, I'm very grateful that I now am able to choose the more comfortable side of this rather than going with like maybe exactly what I want. But if it doesn't feel good, I'm not going to do it. And that's what I have to learn and act upon, And I feel like that comes kind of easy a little bit, because it's like, one, a turnoff for me to be like smelling booze on somebody's breath or stuff like that. But also just like the feeling of disconnect doesn't provide a satisfactory sexual romantic experience for me, And sobriety proves time and time again that the connections I'm making now are so much more real. They're so much more deep. And so it might be not happening as frequent or as frequent as I'd like, but it is happening at a more in-depth level. And that seems more of what I'm seeking. And also, I mean, like I was in a relationship like when I first started getting sober. And, you know, there were faults on both sides of all kinds of things, just like every relationship, and no ill will towards that person at all. Did you hear that? I'm just kidding. um, but you know, and there's like parts where it was like, oh, I'm getting sober, especially at first, and it's like, you know, you have this full expectation that that's going to clean up all the mess, and it's like, oh, wait a second. Had been, you know, making such a mess and impact on this relationship while living in my sickness that, you know, there was still work to be done. And you know, when we split up, I really thought that would be the thing that would break me. But it's just so funny in true addict fashion. I'm like, oh no, the chaos, I'm good. You know, like I can handle, you know, I've dealt with so many deaths, breakups, all sorts of, you know, traumatic of things. And that part, I'm like, okay, I can handle all here, but it's the joy, the celebration, the peace in my soul that is when it gets scary for me, because, you know, I'm a person that's grown up with a lot of trauma, so chaos is familiar.
You're here working in a bar here at Bodie.
Yeah.
Do you feel supported by your boss, and do you feel supported by your staff and coworkers? Do you feel supported here?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, for one, like here at Bodie, like Taylor opening this restaurant, who has worked in the service industry and lived this life for a long, long time herself, you know, not only she wanted to bring authenticity and her, you know, culture's food here with her mom and her grandma, but she also brought with her the care and support that maybe is lacking in this industry. There's, you know, health insurance that's provided and stuff for full-time employees here that she is very generously like covering, you know, lots of money on that side of it for staff. And like because of that, I was able to seek treatment and go to rehab and stay 60 days there, which, you know, was huge for me. It shifted me. It supported me and lifted me, and you know, is why I'm able to be sitting here today, truly. And that's what I think what it is there needs to be more talk on mental health in general in this industry, because it's swept under the rug. We're you know, working 14-hour days, back 2 days in a row, 3 days in a row sometimes, help some people all the time. And we're met with all kinds of stuff, harassment, you know, sexual assault, substance abuse disorder, disordered eating, all sorts of stuff that is just, you know, almost normalized to a sense here. And so what we've done here at Bodie, and there's, you know, I think there's like 5 of us that have been here since we opened 2 years ago. And like there's that sense of family, there's that sense of support and real and rawness that we can be vulnerable with each other, you know, and there, I think maybe the difference is like, you know, a lot of us have been doing this a long time. You know, usually most of us are like early 30s, late 20s kind of area as well. And so, you know, it feels good to support your people that you love doing something for themselves, and that is bringing such a positive light, you know? And like, I mean, even literally just the other night doing side work, like my manager came up to me and was like, hey, like, you know, because I think some staff was having a bottle of wine or something, and was just like, hey, I know side work's done. You're all good to go if you want. Is this making you uncomfortable? And like just kind of checking in about that stuff, and also then affirmed me, like, by the way, like I asked people that, not just you, you know. So like affirming me, like not feeling singled out. And sometimes that's hard, you know. But sometimes instead of just making life more difficult on myself and staying placed there, I say, you know, keep it simple, stupid, and just leave.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like I don't always have to keep myself in uncomfortable situations, and it seems like such an easy duh, but for me it's like, oh, just fight for the chaos, you know. And that's just the rewiring of my brain, I guess. Yeah.
I want you to picture maybe Parch Pavement
Mm,
is like it's business one day. It's brick and mortar. You've got an office with employees going
mm,
there, people that are seeking treatment, they're going there.
wow.
There's a billboard on it. Everyone's going to see it when they come and when they go. What do you think should be on that billboard?
Thirsty for change. Yeah, because that's what we're doing. And that's where the name kind of came from. You're hitting the ground, you're thirsty, but that's where it comes in that, sometimes, I don't know about you, but I drink like a shit ton of soda water. And sometimes it is just about that habit replacement, or like the sucker instead of a cigarette kind of method. But beyond that, it's just, again, creating the representation for somebody who doesn't drink. And that's what we're bringing to the table. We're helping people see that light and feel seen. We are helping to shift the narrative of why not take a step back and what does your relationship with alcohol look like? And, even in a extremely difficult surrounding, myself, amongst many other incredible bartenders in this city, are succeeding at it. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.